Hey everybody, welcome to MagHub Monday. This is the last video of the year, and with that, we're going to be doing a year in review. A couple weeks ago, we hosted a webinar with our CEO, Rudy, and our chairman, Dave, both seasoned experts in the software space, but also intimately in touch with the publishing and media markets. And we talked about trends in the industry for 2020 and what to look forward to in 2021. This video is a compilation of a few different clips from that webinar to give you the best of that in a short amount of time. So I hope you enjoy. Happy holidays and have a great new year. We'll see you soon. Dave, let's go ahead and let's get into it.
Sure thing. So, as Nick mentioned, we're going to aggregate some learnings and things we picked up from our customers, both at MagHub this year, as well as Fry Communications. If you're not familiar, Fry Communications is a pretty large printer in the industry in Pennsylvania, where I'm from, and where, by the way, I will not be going back for Christmas this year probably the first time in my life, so I'll be here in Ann Arbor for Christmas. But this has been a wild year, as everyone knows. It's been a roller coaster. We at Fry Communications and at MagHub saw both a large drop in March and April as our customers retrenched as COVID hit. Then there's a rebound throughout the summer. Then there's another drop in the late summer, early fall. But I think a lot of our customers and we are feeling we're ending the year with a sense of optimism about what 2021 is going to offer. So we'll be talking about that. I think everyone in the industry knows that there's been a lot of change the last 10 years, and it seems to me that COVID just accelerated that trend this year. So whatever we were going to see that was going to happen over the next 2, 3, 4 years, I think got compressed into 1 year this year because of the virus. The overall trend of print to digital was accelerated throughout this year. We saw advertising drop across all channels, but publishers rushed to increase opportunities in digital. Likewise, publishers have had to make do with less for the past 5, 10 years. And this year we saw staff reductions, holds on investments, people having to wear multiple hats. And all of that ultimately has an impact on both the quality of the work we're able to do and people's day-to-day lives. So there's been a tremendous sense of stress on many of our customers, and I suspect that's not news to you. Those who really worked and took advantage of the situation were able to make a little bit of hay. And it reminds me of a famous quote from Sam Walton, who was asked in the early 1980s about that recession, what he thought about. He said, I thought about it and I decided not to participate. And what he meant was that while his retail competition was pulling back, he was investing heavily and he gained market share during that crisis. And obviously had a major impact on Walmart going forward. I want to talk a little bit about what we see in terms of a forecast for the year ahead. This is just came out about a week ago from the CEO Conference Board survey, where they asked CEOs about their optimism of the just overall market conditions. And you'll see that's rebounded now towards the above pre-pandemic levels. It's not as high as it was in the beginning of 2018, right after the tax cut, but it's higher than any time it's been since certainly before the virus came in. And CEOs are ending the year feeling confident. I will say that the consumer confidence is not as high. It dropped in November a little bit. It's not as bad, certainly, as it had been in previous years, but it's not as strong as it was last year either. And personally, I do feel the virus being where it is still going to be tough times for the next quarter or so, but there's a real sense of optimism about the vaccines coming in place. And I think in the March, April timeframe, things will start turning around. And so I still feel myself a little bearish for the next quarter, but feel overall positive for 2021. I want to talk a little bit about ad outlook because it's so important for publishing. Now, this survey here is looking at just digital ad spend, but it's interesting on the screen because if you look at the gray line, that's what the industry forecast was as of March, just pretty much a hockey stick going up. And then in June, it was redone to reflect the impact of the virus, and 2020 was going to be flat by this measure. And then redone again in October, and turns out that 2020 wasn't quite as bad, and the forecast is pretty much where it was going forward earlier in the year. So the industry sort of sees 2020 as a hiccup, but then we pick up the growth where we were on digital. One last bit of data here is Adweek just came out with a result of some survey they did 2 days ago, and they spoke to publishers. They say 68% of publishers are very or slightly optimistic about our increase in 2021 revenue. This is the results of a survey from Burrell Associates where they talked to 2,200 ad buyers. Now, this is a very broad market of local ad spend, national ad spend, B2B, B2C. So it does not all apply to all of you listening right now. But they asked how many ad buyers stopped buying ads in 2020 in these channels specifically because of the virus. And you'll see the higher numbers: outdoor, digital banner ads, broadcast TV. The feeling is that those should rebound in 2021 because of specificity about the virus. You'll see magazines in there at 45%, so we're hopeful that next year will be better for them. And contrast that with this slide, which they asked the ad buyers how many stop buying in channels regardless of the virus and may not return. And you see cable TV, Yellow Pages, direct mail. Magazines are only down 25% in this one, so it's better news there. So this supports the expectation that 2021 for magazines will be better than 2020, and from my lips to God's ears, right? We have some very specific MagHub data here. Again, turn it over to Rudy to talk about that. Sorry, Rudy.
Oh, that's right. Thanks, Dave. This graph is a representation of the executed contracts, so contracts, orders, that contain one or more insertion orders essentially on them, and kind of a history of what it looked like from 2018 to 2020. And one of the things that you'll see is that the actual volume of executed contracts in 2018, it was a little bit higher than it was in 2019. And I'll come back to that a little bit when we talk about revenue numbers. But in 2020, you clearly see a tremendous drop off in the number of executed contracts, particularly in the March, April, May timeframe. For some of our customers, particularly those that were doing publications that were focused around live performance events, for instance, their numbers dropped off basically to zero, right? And that's kind of unfortunately been the case for them throughout most of this year. But we have seen a steady uptick in the numbers throughout 2020, pretty much since the May, June timeframe. The numbers have been continuing to improve. And it looks like December is going to actually be a pretty solid number for executed contracts as well.
Sort of the summary of all this data that I showed is that advertisers are looking to spend more, but with fewer media partners going forward. That survey of 2,200 ad buyers I mentioned earlier really sort of highlighted that. Again, advertisers probably will be spending more money next year, but with not as many media partners.
So now we get to kind of the tail end of the presentation here, where we get to brainstorm about some new ideas that we've been seeing. TikTok, if you haven't heard of it, I don't know where you've been living over the last 9 months. It's kind of this just viral application, and it was in politics and national news. So it's extremely popular, right? And it has this way of creating viral moments, right? Your audience, your ideal customers, they don't leave work. Well, they may never leave work anymore because they're working from home, but they don't leave work and then are not humans later in the evening, right? Their kid sends them a TikTok video. They hop on TikTok. All of a sudden they're scrolling through and all of a sudden they're like, oh, whoa, hey, look, there's a tag here for, first responders. Maybe I'll go look at that, or for post office workers, right? And all of a sudden now they're in the thread of seeing videos, and your video could very likely pop up in that very organically. Dave, this was your suggestion. You have anything to add here?
Yeah, I'm embarrassed to say my wife is angry to report that I'm sort of obsessed with TikTok for the past 6 months. And when you get on TikTok, you're inundated with the dance challenges of young people dancing and all that, and that's certainly a big part of it. But TikTok's actually a really pretty deep place. And one of the things that's really impressed me is the amount of content creators doing very specialized content for niche audiences. There's a drag queen who teaches mathematics on TikTok with 850,000 followers. There are epidemiologists doing reporting on COVID and the vaccines, and a lot of detailed information. There are a woman who's obsessed with the history of lakes, actual bodies of water, and she talks about how this lake was formed and how this lake is different, and the geology of this lake. She has 350,000 followers about her lake videos. there are people in the lumber industry talking about what it's like to work in the lumber area. And so there's all this specialized content, very vertical in nature, that people are seeking out. And it's just interesting. It's stuff you haven't seen before. Also, the production values are very simple. So this is not where publishers 5, 10 years ago were asked to buy $30,000 worth of equipment and put a studio together. These are people just recording a video on their phone. They use the TikTok software to add some stickers and icons and a little bit of cool animation, and they publish it. And the videos max out at 60 seconds. They can't be any longer than 1 minute. And many of them are 15, 20 seconds in length. And it's an opportunity, I think, for publishers to get into this audience. If you're in the B2C space, if you're, for instance, a regional publication, the best of your town, what can you do with TikTok to highlight some of those things, doing very short videos with very cheap production values? There's someone on your staff who has a sense of personality to become the spokesperson for your brand. If you're in the B2B space, your area may be very esoteric. It may be something that's highly specialized for a particular industry, but it's probably people who are actually interested in that kind of thing. And your audience is not on TikTok now. I totally understand that. But it's very easy to take the TikTok videos and export them and put them onto your website, put them onto Twitter, put them on Facebook and other channels you're trying to access. That cranberry juice video TikTok that Nick talked about exploded partially because that video was put onto other social media platforms as well. So I'm a big TikTok fan right now, and it'd be interesting. I haven't seen any publishers on TikTok, and it'd be interesting to see some publishing community moving into that space.
Yeah, I'd also mentioned what Dave said. I mean, I think the demographics of TikTok users is actually quite different than what people think it is. Also, I think there's a lot more people like Dave and myself that actually are TikTok users than many publishers think are actually TikTok users. I mean, we tend to think of it as a bunch of young kids doing crazy videos, but the users and the consumers are changing, right? And changing quite a bit, I think, pretty rapidly too.
And I think the biggest part,
Yeah.
besides just the platform itself and the users are on there, I think it speaks about the types of videos we're willing to digest. It's a new type of communication, a very short video with a pretty low production value. It's in a vertical landscape. It's not horizontal. It's vertical. And like I said, it's very short. It's a new way people are consuming information.